Welcome back, you guys. Kick back and relax as we dive into another episode of Skip to Saturday. Hey, you guys. Happy New Year's 2026. I hope is going to be a great year for all of us. I had been seeing a lot of posts about 2025 being the year of the snake. For a lot of people, that probably was a really heavy year, letting go of friendships that no longer aligned, relationships, that failed, holding on to attachments that we've, held on for far too long. The truth was exposed, cycles were broken, we were shedding. So hopefully, the last 9 years of your life, it's apparently it's that cycle has ended and now we're starting a new cycle. So the next 9 years, should be hopefully are some of the best years yet. And the year 2026 is the year of the horse, and the horse represents momentum and fast moving and being going forward. So I don't know a lot about this. These are the stuff that the posts have been popping up in my explore page, and I was intrigued by it because I've seen a lot of people post about like the year 2025 being the year of the snake and 2025 being the year of the horse and what that means. Karmic cycles are ending, and everything that wasn't meant to be a part of your life has fallen apart or is falling apart. And yeah, so it's kind of like the rise of the phoenix, right? Like it's like a reset, like a factory reset, I guess I should say. Anyways, I just hope that you guys all have a great 2026. If your 2025 sucked or any of the years prior to that, I hope 2026 is your year. So in today's episode, I'm going to share my experience of Zurich, Switzerland. If I were to sum up my experience, for the most part, I was not mind blown, I think I did go in with that expectation of thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to come back and be so crazy about Switzerland or have so many great stories and things to say, but that just wasn't my experience, unfortunately. And I feel bad for saying that because I know when people talk about Switzerland, like I know one of the things that people do say is that it's expensive. And the other thing that they say is that it's really, really pretty. Having said what I just said, I am very grateful that I got to go. I really am, because not a lot of people can say or, say that they've gone to Switzerland or say that they are going to Switzerland or get to experience any of that. But I just was not impressed. So I do feel bad for saying that because it's kind of like my experience and my thoughts and opinions do not align with the majority. And when I look back at that experience, I'm just like, oh, we could have saved that money and put it elsewhere. And obviously I only can say that now. You have to go through the experience to figure out where you stand with it. So moving forward, I know what I can do differently. Anyways, so if you listen to my London diaries from season 1, we briefly mentioned we were supposed to go to Switzerland back in the summer of 2023, but we had to cancel it because my dad ended up in the hospital and he couldn't fly for 2 weeks. So that trip got canceled. So back in 2025, in April, when we were in London, we planned to go somewhere in Europe during that trip. And, my dad was, playing around with the idea of like going somewhere else, flying out from London and, visiting a different part of Europe. And the reason why is because if you don't know this, I'm going to share this with you guys. It's much cheaper to fly out from, if you're already in London, it's much cheaper to explore Europe from there instead of like going from America all the way to like, let's just say you want to go to Rome, right? It's much cheaper if you are in London and that's one of your stops to like, also add on a trip because tickets are much cheaper from there to whatever part of Europe that you want to go to. Obviously, hotel prices are going to be probably the same, I'm assuming, but I feel like tickets are much cheaper and it's not that long of a flight. I think the most from my experience when we've like traveled from London to a different part of Europe, it's been like 2 hours max. So like it's just like you get that break of being in London and then if you add on to your trip, it's like an hour or 2 hour flight and it doesn't feel so heavy. That's just my view on it. But yeah, so we were like, since we're going to be already there and we've got some time, so let's go explore a different part of Europe. And knowing that, my dad wanted to go to Switzerland the first time around and then we couldn't, I was like, why don't we just go to Switzerland? Because we couldn't figure out exactly where we wanted to go. So we landed on Switzerland. We were flying out Saturday evening, and all day, all morning, I just kept getting this gut feeling to not go. And obviously I ignored it because we did go. But like for the main reason why I ignored it was because I didn't want to rob my dad of this experience, because I know that he's not going to travel on his own. And the only time he does travel on his own is for business, or if he's going to the UK to go visit his family. So I was like, he's not going to do anything on his own. He's going to want to have a travel buddy. So I was like, you know what? Like, the tickets are booked. I'll suck it up, ignore this gut feeling, and just have this experience. And then, that's it. So we get there in the evening and we check into our hotel. And I just don't know who was in charge of the layout of these rooms, you guys. When I got into my room, I was like, what in the freaking world? So when I walked in, right, to my right, there was the cylinder looking thing, which turned out to be the shower. And right next to it was a door which led to the toilet, and it had a little sink inside that area as well. And then right across from these, on my left side, was a sink. And then, you walk a few steps and then there's your bed, and then there's a TV. And that was it. It was spacious, but I was not, like, I was expecting a divider, or at least a shower to be in with the toilet area. So there, you have that privacy. You can close the door. So basically, whenever, like, when you take a shower, you're stepping out into the entire room. So that room would not have worked for anyone who was staying with someone and they didn't want to see each other naked. Like, basically, that's what I got from that. I was like, I don't know who designed this room. Like, what were they thinking? Like, you should at least have some privacy, or a divider between the bedroom and the area where the shower and the toilet is. That should be the bare requirement when it comes to designing these hotel rooms. And I'll post a picture of this, okay? Because just so you guys know that I'm not exaggerating. So anyways, after I put my luggage away, I went downstairs to meet my dad because we were going to have dinner. And we were having dinner at the hotel restaurant. The food was not bad. We had pasta and bruschetta and pizza. And then after that, we called it a night because we were just really tired for some reason. And then the next day was Sunday, obviously. My dad planned the entire Sunday, and I planned Monday. Our flight was early Tuesday morning, so we only had 2 full days to do things that we wanted to do. And I was in charge of the food for the entire trip. So Sunday morning, we went to this vegan place where they served acai bowls, smoothies, and other plant-based meals. I ordered this avocado toast and acai bowl, and my dad had this Indian bowl with rice and lentils. My dad said at the time, he said he liked it. And then later when I was telling my sister about my trip, especially this particular place, and she asked him how he felt about it, he was like, oh, that was interesting. And interesting in his world means it was different and I didn't like it. So I don't know why he kept his mouth shut and just said it was really good when we were eating it, but that was not his honest answer. So for Sunday, my dad had booked a bus tour around Zurich. So that bus took us through the mountains. We saw the university there. We got out to take some pictures, and I saw marathon runners running across. So they stopped our bus for a little bit until like everyone made it across to the other side. And then we took the ferry to a cable car ride that was going to take us to the top of the mountain so you could see the city from there. The view from up top was really nice. They had a restaurant there, but we didn't eat anything. When we got back, the bus took us back to our pickup spot. And then from there, we grabbed some vegan burgers at a restaurant, which were really, really good, actually. And then we strolled through the city for a little bit. And then at some point, I was craving something really sweet. So I looked up like ice cream shops, gelato shops, and I went to the nearest one and grabbed myself a little cup of gelato and took a picture. And then we waited for our Uber to pick us up and take us back to our hotel. So that was our Sunday. It was really quick. We had, just one activity planned. The ferry ride was really nice. I got some really nice shots and I'll post them on my story. I did not expect the cars and the bus to get on the ferry as well. I just thought like we were all going to get on the bus, and then, the driver was going to leave us there, and we were going to get on the ferry, and then it would take us across. However, the bus got on there and the cars, and I was just like, oh my God, like I was not expecting that. So we all got out of the bus. Some of us, got out to go to the bathroom or stretch. I took that opportunity to take pictures. But yeah, so that was pretty cool. I think I have a video of that as well, so I'll post that on my story just so you guys know what I'm talking about. I feel like when we think about ferries, me personally, I just think of like this small boat. It's big enough for a lot of people to get on, but not big enough for cars and buses to park in it. So that's like when I'm thinking about ferries, that's what I'm thinking. Then Monday, we did a little shopping in the morning. I was looking for this bag that I really wanted, but it was sold out everywhere in Europe. And I was like, okay, so that's not going to happen. You can get the same bag from the States. However, if you are into brand name things, going to Europe and buying them from there is cheaper compared to the States. So I was like, oh, I'll save money if I buy it from here, but it was sold out everywhere. I did get something for my sister. And then after we finished shopping, we walked around, took some pictures. Then we had lunch at this Indian restaurant. I really enjoyed the food there. And what I've noticed is that Europe has some of the best Indian restaurants. Like, as crazy as it sounds, but I have not been to an Indian restaurant in America that is 10 out of 10. When we went to Spain, Greece, Milan, Venice, all of those places, we've had food from an Indian restaurant, and every time it was freaking good. And it was shocking because I was not expecting for it to taste that good. After we ate, we had some time to kill, so we chilled outside and just soaked in the sun because it was really sunny when we were there. I people watched, and my dad closed his eyes and tried to get a power nap in. And then we went to what was the highlight of my trip. It was the Lindt Factory tour. So we took an Uber to go there. I think it's like a 20-minute ride from where we were. And then when we arrived, like, it's this huge factory. It's so pretty. And then when you enter into the building, they have a store, and then they also have a cafe. So the cafe, we went in there for a little bit because we had some time to kill before our tour started. We just got there a little bit earlier. And like, just in case, that's my dad is like that. Like, let's get to every place 10-15 minutes before we need to actually be there. So I got myself a cup of chocolate covered strawberries, and that was really good because they used obviously Lindt chocolate. So they had that melted all over. So that was really good. And then from the store, I bought like this slab of chocolate, and you can have them write anything you want on there with chocolate. So I got that for my friend. I didn't get one for myself. I wish I did, but I didn't. And in that store, they have like every flavor of Lindt chocolate possible. Like, I was shocked by some of the stuff that I had seen there because here in California, or even just in the States in general, I feel like we get a few of the flavors. The one time that I've seen Lindt with a different flavor from like the normal chocolate, milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate, is this strawberry cream flavor, and they only released that during Valentine's Day. So that was the first time where I had seen Lindt come out with something like a different flavor. So when I went to the store and I just saw like piles of different chocolate everywhere, I was like, holy shit, I did not know they made so many different flavors. Like, that was shocking. And then when you enter the building, the first thing that you do see, aside from the cafe and the store, is this huge whisk that is like floating in the air, and it's got chocolate pouring from it into this huge Lindt chocolate ball, and it looks like real chocolate. It really does. And my dad was convinced that it wasn't. I was convinced that it was. So we were like debating on like, okay, my dad was like, there's no way that they can get real chocolate floating like that continuously. And I was like, I feel like, it probably is real chocolate, but that's just me being a chocolate lover because I would love for everything to be chocolate. I just wanted this crazy idea of mine to be true. So we were like, you know what? The only way we can, figure this out is to ask someone who works here whether or not that's real chocolate. And we asked one of the staff guys, and he was like, it is real chocolate. And I was like, oh my God, that is freaking crazy. And I asked him, like, if anyone has ever tried to like touch it, and he was like, yeah, they do get a few people, kids and like teenagers, getting up on the platform to touch the chocolate. Basically, what it is, it's tempered liquid chocolate, and it's also the world's largest chocolate fountain. It's 30 feet tall, it's this massive structure. It has 1,400 to 1,500 liters of chocolate flowing at over 2 pounds per second. So that is a sight to see. So if you ever go to Switzerland and you love chocolate, I would definitely recommend doing the Lindt Chocolate Factory tour. The tour itself was really fun. I feel like we learned a lot of cool facts about chocolate, like when it was discovered and when they came out with milk chocolate, and how the Mayans and the Aztecs all valued the coca tree, and they would make a drink out of the seeds. I don't know what kind of drink. I'm assuming it wasn't hot chocolate. So, and they didn't give you in detail like what kind of drink that they made and what purpose it served. They also use, back in the day, coca beans as currency, and they would offer them up to their gods. Coca butter back in the day was viewed as a miracle drug. So, that kind of stuff was really intriguing because I love chocolate and I didn't know that, it had other purposes back in the day. On one of the plaques, it said that it was used for medicinal purposes. Apparently, it was a cure for fever. So I thought that's pretty cool. Imagine like kids learning that in school and then using that as an excuse to eat more chocolate, or validating the excessive consumption of chocolate when they're sick. That would be funny. I feel like I would be that kid. If I knew this information back when I was in school, I would tell my parents, like, you know what? If you guys want to get rid of this fever and, send me back to school, give me chocolate. And during the entire tour, they had different rooms. So like the first room was like the introduction of chocolate. And then there was like the history of like Swiss chocolate and Nestle, and when they came out with the milk chocolate and all of that stuff. It was really nice, and they really made it engaging, I feel like. And then in one of the rooms, this is like my favorite room, they had 3 different chocolate fountains, and you could spoon chocolate from the fountain. So that was like the best part of that tour, in my opinion. They had these individually wrapped spoons for the guests at each chocolate fountain, and there was this nozzle that you would put your spoon under and then pull the knob, and then the chocolate would pour out. I don't know how many spoonfuls I had, but I had a lot. And they had 3 different flavors. So they had one chocolate, and then they had a white chocolate. And there's another one. It wasn't dark chocolate. I want to say it was like chocolate with sea salt or something like that, because like it wasn't exactly caramel or salted caramel either. And at each station, they had a little plaque that clearly stated to use a new spoon anytime you were going to pour chocolate, because you could take as many spoonfuls as you wanted. Like there's no limit to that, right? And I saw a lady using the same spoon. She had put her whole mouth on to pour more chocolate on. Like the sign couldn't have been more clear. And I really wanted to tell her, like, hey, you know what? If you're going to go back for seconds, just get another spoon. It's not very hygienic. I don't want to catch whatever you have. I should have said that, but I didn't, because I was on vacation and I didn't want to start a fight. So I think that's probably one of the flaws in their system for that room. People are not going to read. They're not going to follow directions, and there's no one there supervising either. So you're just free to do whatever you want. And then I got to try more chocolate for free. They had a little section where they had 7 different flavors. You were able to take one from each flavor. And I have never tried any of those except for milk chocolate. I think they had milk chocolate as one of the 7 flavors, but the rest I had never tried. And I got 7 total, and some people got more because, like I said, people don't follow directions. And then after we finished the tour, we grabbed dinner at another vegan restaurant. We're not vegan, by the way, just vegetarian. Dining at a vegan restaurant is a safe bet when we're traveling or, going to an Indian restaurant, because you know that you're going to have a lot of options to pick from. I don't remember any of the names from these restaurants. I can always share them with you once I go back into my folder from Switzerland and I can figure out where we were at. But yeah, so we had dinner, our last dinner in Switzerland at a vegan restaurant. And my dad actually enjoyed one of the 3 dishes that we had. So that was not a total fail. And that was the end of Monday. When we got back to our hotel, we packed. I packed. I think my dad packed in the morning. And then I just caught up on my messages from my sister and my friends and then called it a night. And then we had an early flight Tuesday morning. So we woke up pretty early in the morning and then we got back to London. And the funny part about that is that when we got back to London, my dad was like, I'm so glad to be back. And I was like, what? He was like, and I was shocked. I was like, first of all, this is your idea. To go to Switzerland was your idea to begin with, right? You didn't say anything about not wanting to go. And I assumed that he was going to enjoy it. And then he told me that he wanted to go back to Twickenham when we landed that night. So Saturday night when we got there, he wanted to go back. And neither of us said anything, obviously, right? And I was like, what? I wish he had said something, because I didn't want to go. And I wasn't saying anything because I didn't want to rob you of this experience, and tickets were booked, and I didn't want to put you through that hassle of having to cancel everything, So that was funny. And we just couldn't stop cracking up because like we both felt that way, It's like you're not expecting to go to a place that you want to go to and then just wishing that you were back home. Like you should be excited. You should be, looking forward to it. Like we didn't have any of that type of emotion towards Switzerland, unfortunately. And then he also told me that he wasn't impressed by the cable car ride, which he booked, by the way, because it literally took us 5 minutes to get to the top. And he thought there was going to be more to it, and there wasn't. Or we were going to see more stuff along the way on the cable car ride. And that just wasn't the case. And I know that there are cable rides in Switzerland where, you can see, you probably have this panorama, sorry, am I saying that right? View of Switzerland. And I think that probably would be more jaw-dropping, I would say, I think. And I think that's what he thought it was going to be like, and it wasn't. We literally, like I said, took us 5 minutes to get to the top. And as we were going up, we were just like, surrounded by trees. So we couldn't see anything until we got to the top. I think the reason why I wasn't so impressed by Switzerland, and I know that there's a lot more to see out there, like the Alps, is that in California, we have all these huge mountains surrounding us, and we have a lot of nice scenic places. And some of the architect in Zurich reminded me of some of the stuff that I saw in Spain and Milan, just bits here and there. It wasn't like everything didn't remind me of Spain. So I just want to make that clear. So I was just thinking that, Switzerland was going to be better than what I've seen in California. And I was going to see something different that wasn't similar to anything I've seen before. It does look different, I'll tell you that. But I'm just like, I guess I was expecting more, and I didn't get that. So that's just my view on Zurich, Switzerland. Like I said, I'm pretty sure there's other parts of Switzerland that are really beautiful and majestic, and I just haven't been there. So I'm not writing off Switzerland, and there's no shade on Zurich. I just don't have any plans on going back. That trip didn't convince me to want to go back either. If I do go back at some point, hopefully my second experience changes my mind about how I feel about Switzerland. But yeah, so that was my experience in Switzerland. If you've been to Switzerland, I would love to hear about your experience and what you did out there. Maybe that will convince me to give it another shot. And that's it for today's episode, you guys. Tune in next week for an all new episode. And until then, take care of yourselves and have a great 2026.